If you are a little taken aback by the title of this video, just bear with me. I promise it's all going to make sense, and I promise I'm not making excuses for the behavior of narcissists, and that is kind of the whole point of what I want to talk about in today's video, which is narcissism is not a crime. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. Okay, so I know that this may be a loaded phrase to say that narcissism is not a crime, so let me explain what I mean by that. Narcissism by itself is a pathological worldview. It is a worldview that is very skewed by self-centeredness and basically just a lack of development in childhood, a very weak set of emotional skills that just never really went anywhere. But pathological narcissists are not to blame for being narcissists. One of my favorite YouTubers goes by the name The Little Shaman, and in one of her videos she said that, and I'm paraphrasing because it was a long time ago that I watched this, I wish I knew where it was, but she said that narcissism is a choice that the narcissist does not know that they are making. And that's referring to as they develop through childhood. Becoming a narcissist is a response to trauma. It is the best way that they knew how to cope growing as a child, to keep themselves safe and to protect their ego and their sense of self. It's just what happened to work for them and their personality, and so they grew around that. So I don't think it's fair to hold a narcissist responsible for becoming a pathological narcissist. I think that that's an extremely unfortunate thing to have happened to anyone. But where many of us can start to become confused is when we think about the choices that are so common from narcissistic people. Narcissists are not responsible for being narcissists, but they are responsible for the choices they make. It's not a narcissist's fault that they became a narcissist, but if they choose to hurt people and abuse people and exploit people in order to function in their own life, they are responsible for that. That is their fault. And I think it's important to see the difference between these two things. I think when we vilify people because they are a narcissist, we take away their accountability from them, because anyone that's a pathological narcissist that becomes self-aware of how they are and how they view the world, I think that it would be easy for them to give up even trying to be a decent person if they are just met with such hatred and venom just because of the makeup of their mind and the way they think. I think it's important never to take away accountability from narcissistic people, that just because they think a certain way and see the world a certain way doesn't mean that they're not accountable for the choices that they make. And just because one person is compelled to abuse people while someone else would never even want to behave that way, those two people are still both responsible for the choices that they make. If you feel compelled to hurt people, it's not your fault that you feel compelled, but you are still responsible to make the choice not to hurt people. If someone never developed or learned empathy as a child, that's not really their fault. That's not something that we can really hold them accountable for, but we can hold them accountable for being cruel to other people. We can hold them accountable for not trying to develop cognitive empathy and not trying to live in harmony with other people. Narcissism by itself explains why narcissists behave in certain ways. It is an explanation, but it is not an excuse. The behavior itself is the problem. Now, as a disclaimer, I recommend, if you have a pathological narcissist in your life, just don't even try to communicate. I would just cut off contact if at all possible. And at least from my perspective, I am just done trying to deal with pathologically narcissistic people. But But it is a very common question. Should I tell a narcissist that they are a narcissist? I think that when we're ending an abusive relationship, there's this desperate need to want to try to communicate with a narcissistic person and maybe tell them like, hey, you're a narcissist, with this well-intentioned but ill-fated idea that if I can tell him or her that she or he is a narcissist, they'll see the error of their ways, they'll get help. I think that in spirit of the message of this video, it's completely useless to try to tell a narcissistic person that they are narcissistic. What makes a lot more sense is to explain the behaviors, is to explain why you think that person is a narcissist. Now, I'm not saying that that would ever do you any good either way, but it's the idea of communicating with a narcissistic person. It would make more sense to explain to them the behaviors that you cannot tolerate rather than just this idea that you're a narcissist. Narcissism's not really the problem. The problem is that the narcissist doesn't listen to you, or the narcissist is abusive and cruel, or that the narcissist expects you to do things that are impossible, or the narcissist feels entitled to every minute of your time, that the narcissist is self-centered and selfish and unreasonable. These are the crimes. These are the problems. Narcissism itself is really just a word that describes the reason that these behaviors happen, but narcissists cannot stop being narcissists. Narcissists cannot see the world through any different lens than the one that they have. So if we had any prayer of communicating with a narcissist, we would need to speak in terms of the specific behaviors that are the problems, of the behaviors that are caused by narcissism. That would be a place where a narcissist could start to make reparations, is by working on the behaviors that are the actual problems. If we want any chance of a better world, and if we want any chance of anybody that struggles with narcissism to make any improvements, we would have to allow them the possibility of improving. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that anyone should remain in a relationship with them, but I'm saying that there should be the idea that they can improve by improving their behavior, far away from you, just somewhere else. But I think that's much healthier than the idea of just being a narcissist makes you a horrible, unredeemable human being. I think that if we look at it more in terms of the problematic behaviors, then maybe there's a little bit of hope for some of them. And I do believe that there are narcissists in the world. I think that they're rare, and I would never want any abuse victim to hold out hope for this. But I do believe that there are some in the world that hit rock bottom, that really do develop a desire to improve their habits and to learn how to get along better in the world, for their own benefit, but still the desire to improve and lead a more harmonious, productive life. I think it's better for humanity as a whole to take away any excuse they may have not to do that. And I think it's important for us to recognize that narcissists can make better choices. They are capable of being accountable for the things that they've done. They are capable of developing better habits. Now, don't mistake what I'm saying for the idea that you can make them change or that you can encourage them to make better choices. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if a narcissist hits rock bottom, and if a narcissist of his or her own account, for whatever reason, decides that they are willing to start looking at themselves and they are willing to make a change, that they should not have any excuses in the way of that. And that there shouldn't be this message from society that if you are a narcissist, there is zero hope for you. If we are going to point out so often that narcissists never take accountability for anything, I think that any narcissist that actually decides to take accountability should have the opportunity to do so. Narcissism by itself is not an excuse for bad behavior. It is a reason, it is an explanation that leads to the motivation but it is not by itself a crime. Please do not mistake what I am saying as any kind of indication that you should hold out any kind of hope for anyone that's abused you, whether they are a narcissist or not. And that's kind of the whole point. I know for me, when I realized that I was with somebody that appeared to be pathologically narcissistic, that helped me come to the realization that this person is pathological, they're not going to change, and this is abuse. And that helped me see that I needed to give up, that I needed to leave and stop trying to make something out of this relationship that was never going to happen. But then as I processed it and I went along my own healing journey, I slowly came to the realization that while that awakening and that understanding was a very pivotal moment in my life, and it was very important that that happened in the way it did, that really kind of like how Dorothy had the power to go home all along, I realized that I had the power all along to see that regardless of the reasons, the problem was that I was in an abusive relationship, and it shouldn't have taken me seeing it as a pathology to finally understand that I shouldn't be dumping a whole bunch of time and energy and investment into an abusive relationship, into a relationship where I was being treated poorly. And, you know, that's just the way it went for me. But I think it's so important to see that abusive behavior is the crime. Abusive behavior is what needs to be pointed out as the problem. Narcissism is an explanation. It's a cause. It's a motivation to act that way. But abusive behavior is what a narcissist could do something about if they chose to. And the abusive behavior is the problem. And the abusive behavior is what ultimately causes the suffering, and what we really should be focusing on as far as recognizing it, escaping it, and if we find that we have abusive tendencies ourselves, working on recognizing and solving the actual problem. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, or if you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know what you think below. Comment any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and you would like to see other videos like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.